Hey guys, Daddy's here. I've been reading this particular book right now. It's called 100 Great Thinkers of Philosophy. I've got about 7,000 books in my house or everywhere, but this particular book is very good in that it goes through the history of 100 of the most significant philosophers of all time. And I'm just going to take a few minutes and talk about some of the early ones and tell you why I think philosophy is important, even if you're a young person. A philosophy is basically a way you see the world. It's a it's a structure for how your world is set up. Now, some people have very simple philosophies, like I want to do this, this, and this, and I don't want to do that, that, and that. That's a philosophy. Other people have very highly complex philosophies. Your dad has a very complex way of seeing the world. My book here has 1,300 different entries of philosophical ideas. So, and I got all of this from reading little books like this. So a little book like this became a big book like this because obviously your dad is pretty smart. That's what it is. So one of the philosophers I want to talk about is the Buddha. The Buddha came along and said, for example, he kind of had it made. He really had life made, and he was rich. His dad was rich. His mom died at birth, but his dad gave him everything he wanted. But one day he decided he wanted to find out what the world was like. So he went out. He had his carriage rider take him out, and they looked around in the real world, and he found out about suffering, about poverty, about hunger, and about death. And he realized, wow, it's not such a great world after all. I thought it was a perfect world inside of the castle walls of where I lived, but he found out it wasn't. So here's what he did. He decided he would sit under a tree, and he sat there for about 6 years, from the age of 29 to about the age of 35. And he thought, what is life all about? He decided that life was about suffering. It's basically, we all suffer. Now, I have a philosophy that the reason we suffer is because God's putting us through our trials. We're going through different things because this is why we're on the planet. It's a classroom here, and we're here to learn. So my philosophy about suffering is that we're here for a reason, and we all suffer for a reason. And I want you to know we don't suffer for no reason. Everything has a plan in God's big picture. And Buddha, even though he didn't necessarily recognize that, he all the time began to recognize that life, the nature of life, was suffering. So you don't want to get attached to things, and you want to meditate. And he came up with Buddhism, which was a way to solve the problems of his day. Socrates was another philosopher. He was a Greek philosopher. And Socrates, one of the major contributions he made was that knowledge is unlimited. The more you know, the more you know that you don't know. So as we grow, now curiosity is one thing that does not belong to the young, because I'm going to be 70 years old in about 15 months. And I am the most curious person. I'm constantly looking to solve things and find out things. So curiosity is a good thing. And one of the reasons I'm curious is because Socrates taught that the more you know, the more you realize, wow, I don't know anything. So you realize you're dumb because there's so much to learn and so much to evolve and grow into. So I want you guys to know you're never going to stop learning. Always be curious. That's another good reason to involve yourself with philosophy. Now, the next philosopher I want to talk about is Epicurus. Epicurus is one of my favorite philosophers, and I'm only going to touch on one of his ideas. And one of his ideas is that as we look for things, we want things. We want to accumulate things, possessions and things. We want to get money. The more you want, the more you're going to want. There's no limit to the amount of wanting you're going to want. You're going to always want things. So realize that. So be satisfied sometimes. The philosophy of Epicurus was be satisfied. Don't always think you have to have everything. You know? And it's a fact of life that we don't always have to accumulate things, because They're rich people that all they want to do is get the next dollar. They're never satisfied. They're never satisfied with enough. It's never enough. It's always got to be more, more, more. And that's a philosophy that you can embrace is, I'm going to be satisfied with this. It doesn't have to be more, more, more. Do you understand what I'm saying? Okay, that's our third philosopher, Epicurus. Now the next one is named Anaximander. And Anaximander. And Anaximander is not very well known as a philosopher, but he's in the top 100 philosophers. And the reason he's famous is because a long time ago, he created a system of thinking. Because of that system, I've been able to come up with a book about philosophy. And my system of thinking is, it's a balance of the mind, and you guys know by now, the body, the social relationships, and the spiritual relationship we have. My system is a balance. And I believe that this Anaximander also, and I'm saying his name wrong because I don't have my eyeglasses on, I have my sunglasses on me because my eyes hurt because I'm always looking at the computer. But Anaximander taught that we have a system of thinking. He created the first philosophical system. And in our lives, we have to have a system that creates meaningfulness and significance in our lives. Now, a lot of you are not going to find this particular lesson relevant for you, but you should, because philosophy of life, worldview, the way you see the world, your way of seeing things is very, very important. It really is. And that's what I want you to understand in this lesson we're having here. The last one is one of my favorites. His name is Plotinus. He's an ancient Greek philosopher too, and he's also in this book. Plotinus taught there's a oneness in all things. And my philosophy includes a lot about the concept of oneness. All of nature is one. All of humanity is one. All of God is one. We're all one. We're all one. Nobody on the planet is worse than each other's 11th or 12th cousin. We're all cousins. We're all relatives here on the planet. On this little blue ball flying through space, we're all relatives, and we're all one being. We're one, and we're all connected with God. We're one being, one person, and we're connected with God. So that was a big contribution Plotinus made, and that philosophy caught on for a lot of people down through the years. So I teach that all the time, is that we're all one person, we're all one being. What I want you to understand about worldview and philosophy is that everybody has a philosophy, even if it's no philosophy. If your philosophy is, I don't really have a philosophy, then that's the way you see the world. You're lacking a philosophy. If you have a very, very complex philosophy, like your dad does, then your worldview includes complexity within the midst of that philosophy. Everybody has to see why we're here. Everybody has to justify their reason for being here. We all have to study that and understand that better. And that's the purpose of philosophy. That's why people are philosophers. They say that philosophers are always asking questions. Theologians are always giving answers. You go to church and they're going to tell you the answer to everything, and there's nothing wrong with that. You can evaluate what they say. But a philosopher's always got a question, always wanting to know something more. So I am in love with philosophy. I'm in love with the concept of metaphysics, which is beyond the physical, because I realize I have an arm here, but it's just an arm. It's made out of flesh and blood, and more so, I'm a spiritual being. And that's the thing I try to teach in my lessons. Okay, we're talking again about the philosophy of life. We're talking about the contributions philosophers have made. I'd show you the book one more time, but I dropped it on the floor. And I want you to understand that it's very, very important to study these kind of things. Now, when I wrote these two books on philosophy, my wife, again, she suggested these are too complicated, so you have to rewrite them and make them a little more simple. And so then I wrote the young people's version, this big green book, and I wrote this to help people understand. And again, to go through balanced philosophy. You want to work on things about your mind, things about your body, things about your social world with other people, and things about your spiritual world. All are a balance. And I keep preaching and teaching the balance. It's all about the balanced life. That's what we're going to talk about this time. Philosophy and having a meaningful, purposeful philosophy in your life. Okay, this has been lesson number number 97, and the word we're looking for is frog. So if you're looking for a keyword, we don't always use the keyword, but this time we'll use the words frog. Okay, I love you guys. Okay, take care. We'll talk to you soon. Okay, bye bye. Love you.